Hey guys, this is Josh here from Trillium Wild Edibles, and today I want to bring you all an identification video on Dutchman's Breeches. This plant that we're looking at in front of us is known as Dutchman's Breeches. This is a very common plant that grows in moist woodlands, usually along with toothwort, trout lily, spring beauties, and trilliums. This plant flowers in the very early spring, as we can see here looking at this spike of flowers. It gets its name, Dutchman's Breeches, from the fact that these flowers actually look like upside-down pantaloons that were worn by the Dutch in the early colonial days. Whenever we look at the flowers, we're going to notice that there are two petals that look rather inflated. If we turn this to the side, we can see they look kind of inflated. And at the bottom, we're going to notice two yellow spurs, just like we can see on the bottom of all of these right here. You're going to find a couple different colorations of flowers. Usually they're going to be white, but they can appear like this with this kind of whitish pink hue that we can see on this set of flowers right here. Each plant of Dutchman's Breeches can send up multiple spikes with multiple flowers on them like we can see on this one right in front of us. Let's take a look at the leaves of Dutchman's Breeches. Now right here we can see a set of the leaves on this Dutchman's Breeches plant. And if we look at them closely, we're going to notice that they're very finely dissected. These are compound leaves, and they're very finely dissected with a whole lot of divisions, just like we can see on this one right here. Let's take a closer look at some of these divisions. Right here is a really good close-up of all of these divisions in these leaves, and you'll notice that there are a whole lot of them. You're going to notice that they're not always divided in the same way, and the leaves are going to be kind of variable in the shape as we can look at these different sets here. And if we look at that one there and we look at the shape of that set versus the shape of this set, we're going to notice that they are a little bit different. These leaves are very soft. They're also very thin and very delicate. So make sure you keep that in mind when you're handling this plant, that the leaves are very delicate so you don't destroy it too much. If we flip it over, we're going to notice that the underside is a little bit lighter in green than the top side of these leaves. Now here we can see the rest of this Dutchman's Breeches that we've been looking at. We can see that spike of these flowers, and we can see these leaves growing here along the ground. We can actually see some other plants coming up over there, some more Dutchman's Breeches coming up there. We can see some back over here. Usually this plant will colonize an area, and wherever you find one, you're most likely going to find dozens, if not hundreds or thousands more, especially if you're covering a large area, like a few acres or just several miles. You're going to notice thousands of these guys. They're not rare by any means, at least within my state of Indiana. So let's talk a little bit about some of the variations of the flower colors here. Now, like I said earlier, the flowers are normally going to be white, like we can see on this spike with these flowers here. We can see just how white they really are. But you can also find them, like we saw earlier, with a little bit of a pinkish hue. So if you see these with this very distinct shape, upside down pantaloons, yellow spurs along the bottom, and two petals pointing upwards towards the sky, and they look to be inflated, you know you have Dutchman's Breeches, especially if you see those very distinct sets of leaves. One of the other flower colorations that you're probably going to find on some of your Dutchman's Breeches are here, where we can see they have this sort of whitish yellow appearance to them. So there are a couple different flower colorations that you're going to find on this plant, and we can see that the spurs on the bottom of these look almost green in color. So do keep that in mind when you're looking at your Dutchman's Breeches. They're not different species, it just has a couple of variations in its flower color. Now there are a few uses of this plant, but I do not recommend using it because it can be potentially poisonous, and some people are actually allergic to this plant, and it can give them skin rashes, and it can cause some stomach digestion and some bleh. And it can cause some stomach upset. So be careful if you decide to use this plant internally. I'm not going to talk about its internal uses because I've never used it internally, but there's some interesting little history about this plant. The Iriquois tribe actually used to use these leaves, and they would take them and they would make like a poultice to rub on athletes' legs to make them more limber. So I would assume it probably would work sort of like a topical muscle relaxer, though I've never used it for that at all. So I can't say how effective it is. Another interesting thing is the Menominee tribe used to use the root as a love charm. It was said that basically they would throw a root at somebody that they wanted to get in love with or fall in love with, and if they chewed the root, the breath, they would actually affect their breath, and that would attract people to them. Whenever you do find your Dutchman's breeches, like I said earlier, you're going to be finding things like trout lily, toothwort, spring beauty, trilliums, and you can also find wood nettles coming up, usually in the same areas because they love moist, low-lying habitats. And if we look over here to our right, now right next to the Dutchman's breeches that we were just looking at, we can see some of the early shoots of wood nettle. This is an amazingly delicious plant, and it usually loves growing in very, very moist habitats. So another thing you might also find in these areas could be potentially morels as well, if there are the proper trees in the area. While these wood nettles are edible in this stage, I personally like to wait till the leaves are a little bit bigger so you actually get some substance with them, because whenever you do cook them, they shrink quite a bit. But I did want to show those to you guys since I saw them here. So that's how you guys can identify the plant known as Dutchman's breeches. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you guys learned something from it. If you want to learn more about wild edibles or medicinal plants, please make sure to subscribe.